I want to do some real talk. So 8 years ago, in March of 2017, I was the chair of the Education Committee for all the mayors in the United States. And part of that job is you assemble a team of bipartisan mayors from all over the country to go call upon the Secretary of Education. It's mostly a diplomatic formality. So I got the group together, mayors from every corner of America. We walked to the Department of Education, got in the elevator, went up to the top floor, got out of the elevator. It was all dark. There was one person there waiting for us, saying, "Oh, the secretary is waiting for you." We walked through the serpentine halls of the U.S. Department of Education, pretty much all in the dark, no people, until we get to the office door of the secretary, and we sit down with Secretary Betsy DeVos. And you can guess what she had to say. And I bring this up because she said a lot that day about what she intended to do and what the administration's plans were for going after kids and teachers and education across this country. But what struck me about that moment was that there was no one in the building to do her bidding. They had ideas, they had plans, they had evil in their hearts, and yet they had no assistant secretary. They had no director of a program. No one was there to do the work. And I say this because 8 years later now, they've learned their lesson. They've learned that they have to staff up the government. They've already nominated the deputy secretary and the assistant secretaries. They are staffing up a government to not just have words, but to have actions to follow it up. And so we must also. This is where Project 2025 comes from. This is why our vice presidential candidate said you don't have a plan unless you intend to use it. They learned 8 years ago that they must have a plan to execute in every way. And so our challenge today is to also change our tactics, to be ready to meet this new moment, not to relive 2017 again, but to be ready for the real fight. Now, on Monday, we will have the confluence of two things that feels like blasphemy: the inauguration of the new president, and the commemoration of the life and the service and the impact of Dr. Martin Luther King. But I see it as a blessing that Monday we will be, in addition to the football game, on that Monday. When we remember, when we acknowledge, when we commemorate, it is also our moment to plan and to organize. And to remember also that we are celebrating Dr. King's birthday and his contribution, not solely as the man, and not solely as the story we like to rewrite about our history and say, well, you know, he was so inspiring and so loving and so forgiving. All of that is true. There's also a hardcore organizer on the streets. Their lives were being taken, shot. We lost over and over and over again. Folks had to get off the bus, step away from the lunch counter. The civil rights movement lost virtually every single election during that period. So when we look back at ourselves and say, gosh, that November election was like a gut punch. It felt like maybe the public wasn't all with us. What's wrong with us as a people? Let's remember that change, that rights, that progress is a struggle. And it's not one day, it's not one night, it's not one set of maps on CNN. It is that battle that goes on and on and on, and we have to fight it. Now we will say, as we have said today, that we must be allies. But remember also that we're all going to be allies of one another, of immigrants, of folks in the LGBTQ community like myself, for reproductive rights, but also allies of anybody who happens to breathe clean air. Allies of those who need water, not being all sent down south. Allies of those who don't want to get polio at Starbucks. Right? This is all of our fight. Let's not give ourselves the privilege of thinking we're just showing up as good-hearted allies. This is a fight for us, for all of America, for all of Sonoma, for all of California. And we have to step up. And so as we move to Monday and beyond, let's take a moment to reread and reflect. Maybe we're reading Anne Frank, maybe we're studying Harriet Tubman. What can we do? What will we do individually? I know some of you are disappointed that there's not 100,000 of us here today, or a million marches like this around the country. But give grace to each other, because some of us are gathering our strength, some of us are recovering and fatigued, some of us can't be here because we can't afford to be caught by a road border patrol agent from El Centro. We all have to show up in our own ways. And so we will all need to support one another in doing that. But think in advance. What will I do if half of my community is rounded up? If my daughter's favorite soccer coach is deported, how will I show up? Am I willing to join with the local labor movement and call for a national day of action or strike? Will I be there? If someone in my community, if the deacon of my church is being rounded up for deporting, will I shelter them? What will I do? Think in advance about how we will show up, because we will have to. So I know so many of you, we are prepared for this fight. We will make it happen. And we have to believe, but we also must be prepared for taking that action. So please, let me just call on you today. Don't keep the pink hat right at the front door, because we're going to have to show up day after day after day. But we will. We will, just as Dr. King taught us, despite all the losses that we will endure, all the pain that we will have to suffer, we will persevere and we will win. Thanks for being a part of today.